In this tutorial, we're going to be creating this procedural lava rock material in Blender. Now, if you'd like to help support me and this channel and also get the project files for this tutorial, then you can purchase the project files over on my Gumroad store, link will be in the description, and also my Patrons. Over on my Patreon page, we'll be getting the procedural material as well. Links will be in the description. And also, real quick before we start, I wanted to give a huge thanks to Sketchfab for sponsoring this video. On Sketchfab's 3D model store, you can purchase models and assets. My favorite feature of Sketchfab is that you can upload and preview your own 3D models in your browser. You can even view your 3D models on a phone or tablet. You can also apply to become a seller on the platform. Check out Sketchfab with the link in the description. Alright, so this is the procedural material that we're going to be creating. As you can see, it's actually not that complicated, but I will be walking you through the entire process in real time. And also, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'm going to be using the displacement in the node editor to actually displace the rocks. So the rocks are actually going to pop out of the mesh. You can see here's without the displacement. It still looks like a pretty cool material, but if you add the displacement, it really pops out those lava rocks. It pops them out of the lava, and I think it gives a really cool result. Alright, so let me just show you the setup that I have in the 3D viewport. So what I did is I pressed Shift A and I added an icosphere, and then when you add the icosphere, right down here on the icosphere settings, you can turn these subdivisions up, and that way the sphere is going to be very subdivided and detailed. And then I also shaded it smooth. And then I also added a camera, and I pointed the camera right at the sphere. Now also, to get a very nice bright light on the side here, I added in this plane light. So I just pressed Shift A and added a plane, and then I subdivided it so it's kind of round. And then right over here on the materials, I added an emission material to it, and then I set the color to a yellowish reddish color, and I turned the strength up to 60. And you can see that now we have that nice bright light on the side of the object. And then also, to get even more realistic lighting, what I did is I added in this Abandoned Workshop 1K HDR, and this is from polyhaven.com. So I'll leave a link in the description if you'd like to download this same HDRI. So right over here on the world settings, I just changed this to environment texture, and then I opened up the HDRI. And then also, because the lava is going to be glowing, I turned the strength down to 0.5, and that way the world lighting is a bit darker, so the light from the lava can really pop out. And then also, before we start, I am going to be using the Node Wrangler add-on. So if you don't have that add-on enabled, you can just click right here on Edit and then click on the Preferences. And then right over here on the Add-ons tab, you can just start to search for Node right on the search here. And you can see it there is this Node Wrangler add-on. So you can just check mark it, and then we'll be using it later in the video. All right, so let's get started. So I'm just going to click on New right here, and then I can just call this material Lava Rock, or whatever you want to call it. Now, before I continue setting up more of the nodes, I want to set up the displacement. Now, you don't need to use the displacement if you don't want to, but if you want to use the displacement, let me just show you what you need to do to set it up. So the render engine needs to be cycles, so make sure it's set to cycles, and then the feature set here needs to be set to experimental. And then make sure you've already added in a new material. So once you've added in that material, we're going to click right over here on the material properties, and I'm going to scroll down. Now, right over here on the settings tab right here, you can see that there is this surface tab in the settings tab, and then there is the displacement. So the displacement, it's set to bump only right now. I want to set it to displacement and bump, and that way it's going to use the bump. Now also, I want to use the adaptive subdivision, and that way it's going to add more detail where we need it. So I'm going to click right over here on the modifiers, and I'm going to click on add modifier, and I'm going to add the subdivision surface modifier, and we'll just wait for that to load up. All right, so I added it in. So now just make sure that the adaptive subdivision is turned on, and then that way when we go into rendered mode, wherever we render the image, it's going to make sure that there is more detail where we can see it closer up. And then the dicing scale, I'm just going to leave that at 5 for now. That works pretty well. All right, so let's go into rendered mode, and then I'll just make this a little bit smaller, and we can set up the procedural material. So we need to make two different materials. We need to make a lava rock material and a lava material, and then we're going to use a mix shader to combine them together. So I'm first going to start by making the lava rock material. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a noise texture. We'll just drop that right there. And then also, because we turned on the Node Wrangler add-on, I can select this node and I can press Control T, and that is going to add the texture coordinate and mapping. Now, I don't really need the mapping, so I'm just going to select it and then press X to delete it. and then I want to plug the object up to the vector, and then I can just Control, Shift, and click on the noise texture. So on default, the textures use the generated coordinates, but if you change it to object, then that way the texture is going to be placed around the object more evenly. And then I'm going to leave the scale at 5. I think that looks pretty good, but I'm going to turn the detail all the way up to 16 so it's nice and detailed. All right, so now I can take the factor and plug that into the base color of the principled, and then I can hold down the Control and Shift key and click on the principled BSDF, and that is going to preview different nodes. So that's using the Node Wrangler add-on. So if you hold down the Control and Shift key and click on nodes, then that will preview them. Now this doesn't really look like rock right now, so to change the colors, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a color ramp node, and we'll just drop it right in here. So now we can change the tabs, and that's going to change the color of the rocks. So this first black tab, I'm going to drag it way out so there's a lot more black. And then this white tab here, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to change it to a reddish brownish color. So I'm going to make it a bit darker and kind of a reddish brownish. And if you'd like to use the same exact color that I'm using, you can click right over here on the hex value and you can type in 6D392C. All right, so you can see that's looking a little bit more like rock, but it is a bit shiny. So what I want to do is I want to take the factor of the noise texture and plug that into the roughness. And then I want to control how rough it is. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for another color ramp node, and we can just drop it right in here between the noise texture and the roughness. So if you take the black tab and turn it up, it's going to make it more and more rough. So you can see if I turn it way up, it's going to be super chalky and rough, but then if I turn it down, it'll be more shiny. So you can see now it is a little bit shiny, but it still is pretty rough because it is rock. And of course, you can change this later if you'd like to. And then also, I want this to be contributing to the normal because rocks are very bumpy. So I'll take the factor and plug that into the normal, and then we need to convert this to normal data because this is black and white data. You can see that it's the gray, but then this needs to be normal data because it's purple. So I need to convert it. So to convert it, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a bump node, and we'll drop the bump node right in here. And then what we want to do is we want to take the factor and put that through the height. It'll convert it to normal data, and now you can see that it's actually bumping that out, and that looks a lot more like rock. And then of course you can change the strength if you'd like to. I want it to be very bumpy, so I'm going to keep the strength at 1. All right, so that is looking pretty cool, but lava rocks usually have some little holes in the rock. So to add those, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a Voronoi texture. I'll just drop the Voronoi right down here, and then I want to plug the object up to the vector on the Voronoi. And then I can also Control, Shift, and click on it to preview it. So the scale right here, I'm going to turn this up to 60, and now you can see that there's a bunch of little dots. So now I want this Voronoi texture to be contributing to the bump. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift D, and I'm going to drop this right down here. And then actually, I want the normal to be going into the normal, and then I want to unplug this, and then I want the noise texture to be going back up to the height. So this way, the normal is going to the normal, so we can add multiple bump maps together, and then this noise texture is going into the height. So I can now take this distance value and plug it into our new bump. Now if I Control, Shift, and click on this, you can see what it's doing. So it's very bumpy, but the problem with this is that it's super bumpy all over the place, and I just want there to be some little bumps here and there, some little holes. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a color ramp. Let's just drop the color ramp right here. And then if I take this white tab and start to drag it out, you can see that now it's making those bumps smaller. So if I Control, Shift, and click on this, you can see that it's making the bumps smaller and more contrasty. So now if I Control, Shift, and click on both of these bumps, you can see this just adding in little bumps right in there. And if I Control, Shift, and click on it, you can see now that has a lot more detail. All right, so that is it for the finished lava rock material. So I want to just join these together into a frame so that it's just organized a little bit better. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a frame. This is totally optional, but I like to do it to organize my nodes. So now that I've added the frame, I'm going to box select all of these nodes. So press B and then drag around, but I don't want to box select the material output. Now I'm going to drag and drop all of these into the frame, and now if I drag the frame around, it's going to move all the nodes around. Now you can actually rename this frame if you want. So to rename it, I'm going to press N, and that's going to open up the side panel. Now the label right here, you can just change this to rock or lava rock or whatever you want. And then if I press N to close this, you can now see that it says rock. All right, so that is the first material. Let's now make the lava material. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for another principled BSDF, drop it down here, and then I can Control, Shift, and click on this, and we can preview it. You can also move the material output kind of right down here in the center. So now I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for another noise texture. Let's just drop it down there. And then again, I want to use the object coordinates. So if you just select the noise texture, you can press Control T, and that's going to add the texture coordinate and mapping. Now I don't want the mapping, so I'm just going to select it and press X to delete. And then I can plug the object up to the vector. And then I can Control, Shift, and click on this to preview it. Now I want to turn the scale down to 4, and then I also want to turn the detail all the way up to 16, so it's very detailed. And then the roughness here, I'm going to turn this up a little bit to like a 0.6, so there's a little bit more roughness. And then I'm also going to turn the distortion up to 7. And when I turn the distortion up to 7, you can see that's looking a lot more like lava or some sort of liquid. Now I want to play around with the colors. Let's first plug the factor into the base color. But then if I Control Shift and click on this, you can see that doesn't look at all like lava. So let's press Shift A, and I'm going to add a color ramp. Let's just drop the color ramp right in here, and now we can make all the different colors that we want for the lava. So I'm going to drag this black tab out to about here, and then this one I'm going to make a orange color. So I'm going to turn it all the way up to white, and then I'll make it a very strong orange color. And if you'd like to use the same exact color that I'm using, you can click over on the hex value and you can type in FF 8000. And then this one, this white tab, I'm going to drag it out as well to make it very contrasty. And then I'm going to make this one a very bright red color. And again, if you'd like to use the same exact color that I'm using, you can click on the hex and type in FF 000F. So that is sort of looking like lava, but it isn't emitting light, and I want it to emit light. So as well as this being plugged into the base color, I also want to plug it up to the emission value. And then the emission strength, let's turn that up higher to something like a 20, so it's a lot brighter. Now I also want to plug this into the normal to give it some bump, so I'm going to plug the color into the normal, and then again I need to convert it, so I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a bump node, and we'll drop the bump node right here, and then we can plug the color up to the height. And then also I want to turn the roughness down to like a 0.1, just so that the lava is a lot more shiny. And that is it for the lava material. So it's actually pretty simple. Now I want to add this into a frame as well, just to organize it really well. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a frame, and then again just box select all of these, and I'm going to drop them into the frame. Just like that, just drop them into the frame, and then you can click on the frame and you can press N to open up the side panel, and on the label here I'm just going to call it lava and then press N to close that, and now you can see it says lava. Alright, so if I Control Shift and click on both of these, you can see we have both of our two materials, and now I want to combine them together. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a mix shader. I'll just drop the mix shader right here, and then I actually want to plug the rock up to the bottom one, and then I want to plug the lava up to the top one. So then once I have these plugged up, I can just Control Shift and click on the mix shader. So right now we have this factor. So if I drag the factor, you can see it's just going to evenly blend it in between the lava and the rock. What I want to do though is I want to tell it that some parts are going to be the rock and some parts are going to be lava. So to do that, we're going to need to make a mask or a factor, and then we can plug that into the factor value. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a noise texture. We'll just drop that right down there. And then again, I want to press Control T to add the texture coordinate and mapping. And then I don't need the mapping node, so I'll press X to delete it. And then I can plug the object up to the vector. So let's Control Shift and click on the noise texture now to preview it. Now the scale, I'm going to turn that down to like a 4, and then I'll turn the detail all the way up to 16, so it's very detailed. And then also I'll turn this roughness value up to like a 0.7, so there's a bit more roughness. So we can now take this factor and we can plug the factor into the factor on the mix shader. So I can now Control Shift and click on this, and you can see that right now it's not really doing anything, and that's because I need to make it more contrasty so that it's very clear where it's going to be the rock and where it's going to be the lava. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a color ramp node. Let's just drop that right there. And then I actually want to switch these values. So I'm going to drag this black one all the way over here and the white one over here. So now that I've switched these, you can see that when I drag the white closer to the black, it's going to be only the rock. And then when I drag it all the way over here, it's going to be only the lava. So now I just need to find somewhere in between that looks nice. Now, if you zoom in really close, you can see that it's very, very sharp where it's lava and where it's rock, and I want to make that a little bit more smooth. So this black tab right here, I'm going to change this color to a very light color. And you can see that as I turn it up, if it's fully white, it's going to be all the rock. But then as I turn the color down, you can see that slowly the lava is starting to kind of seep through. So if you want to be very, very contrasty, you could just turn it down, but I want to turn it up so that the edges are a little bit more smooth and kind of blending together. And then you can also drag this light brown tab out a bit, and you can see that when I drag it closer and closer, it's going to make the lava even more contrasty. So you can see when I drag it really, really close, the yellow is really bright. So I don't want it to be super, super bright, but I do want to drag it out a bit. So that is looking really cool, but you can see that there's kind of too much red, and also the lava isn't glowing very much. So what I want to do is right over here on the lava material, I want to turn the emission strength up to like 100. And now that I've turned it up to 100, you can see that the lava is very, very bright. So if that's too bright for you, you could turn it down, but I want it to be very, very bright, especially because in the compositor, I want to add a glare node to make the lava glowing. Alright, so there's just one last thing that we need to do to make this material look really nice. We need to add the displacement. So to add the displacement, I'm going to drag the lava down a bit so that there's a bit more space. And then what I want to do is actually shift select the texture coordinate and this noise texture. Then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it and just drop it right down here. Now for this one, I want to turn the roughness down to like a 0.5 back to the default because I don't want quite that much roughness because that's going to be too noisy and it's not going to look very good for our displacement. So now what I can do is I can press Shift A and I can search for the displacement node, and I'm just going to drop it right down here underneath the mix shader. Then I can plug the displacement up to the displacement, and then I want to plug this noise texture up to the height value on the displacement. Now the mid-level, I'm going to turn that to 0 because I don't want any mid-level. And then the scale here, it's way too strong. You can see that's really, really strong. So I'm going to turn the scale down to a 0.02. I find that that is the best value. You could of course turn it up more if you want. Now it's not really doing too much right now, and that is because I want to make the noise texture more contrasty, because right now you can see it's not very contrasty. So I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to search again for another color ramp node to make it more contrasty. Now again, I want to flip these values, and now that I've flipped these values, you can see that the lava is kind of just flat, but then the lava rock is actually popping out of the mesh. So I can Control, Shift and click on this, and let's just change this value. So you can see that where it's white, that's going to be coming more up. So where it's fully bright, that's going to be popping out the most, and then where it's black, it's not going to be bumping out at all. So you're really just going to have to play around with this and get it to how you like. So where it's going to be white, that's going to be more of the rock popping out. Alright, and then you can Control, Shift, and click on the mix shader to preview the final material. Now there is just one thing that I want to change. I want there to be a little bit less lava because there's a little bit too much lava right now. So to make there be less lava, right here on this color ramp, I'm going to take the white tab and drag it more towards the gray tab. And when I do that, you can see that now there's less lava. Alright, there we go. And then of course, if you want to change this scale right here on the displacement, if you want to make the rock popping out even more, you could turn it up to like a 0.03 or maybe even like a 0.05 if you want the rocks to really be popping out. That's too strong for me. I'm going to turn it down to a 0.02. I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so we will render this out and then we'll just do a little bit of compositing to make the lava glowing. So you can set up any render settings that you want. I'm just going to click on render and then click on render image, or you can press F12. Alright, and it just finished rendering, so now let's set up that compositing. So I'm going to click right over here on the compositing tab, and then I'm going to click on the use nodes. So now what I want to do is I want to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for the denoise node just to denoise the image to kind of smooth it out. So I'm just going to drop the denoise right there, and then I can Control, Shift, and click on it, and that's going to add the viewer node, and then also make sure the backdrop is enabled, and that's going to preview it. Now also, I want there to be like a dark black background, so I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to search for an alpha over node, and I'll just drop the alpha over node right here. Now this image, I want to plug it into the bottom one, and then this image right here, I'm going to make it fully dark, or you can just make it a dark blue color or whatever you want. it. All right, that is looking really good. Now there's just one more thing that I want to do to make the image look really nice. I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to search for a glare. We're going to drop the glare right down here after the denoise, and then just make sure the compositing in viewer is plugged up to that. So then right here on streaks, I'm going to change this to fog glow. And then right here on the low, medium, or high, if you change it to high, then the glow is going to be a little bit smaller. You can see if I change it to low and then let that load up, you can see now the glow is a lot bigger. So you can really change this to whichever one you want. I think I'm going to change it to medium, and that way it's going to be kind of in the middle. All right, there we go. So if we just press F11, that's going to go back to the render result, and then I can just click on this and change it to the viewer node, and that's going to preview the final image. Now to save this image, you can just click on image, and then you can just click on save as. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. And also, if you'd like to help support this channel and also get the project files, then you can get that over on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. The links are in the description. And also, if you'd like to help support this channel here on YouTube, then I have the YouTube memberships. So if you click on that join button right down there next to the subscribe button, then you can check out my memberships. And if you join one of my memberships, then you'll be helping to support the channel monthly, and you'll also get some cool perks here on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you in a future video.